Okay, so let's unpack this. We're diving into a controversy that has just absolutely dominated social media feeds recently.
It really has.
And it's all centered around a resurfaced comment from the rapper 50 Cent.
Right.
The clip is circulating everywhere right now, and it features him claiming that men who date transgender women are, quote, gay.
And that single remark, which is actually pretty old, has been pulled into the modern conversation and just ignited a fierce, fresh debate online.
Exactly.
So I think it's important to say up front, our mission today is not to weigh in on who's right or wrong here.
No, not at all.
Instead, we want to do a deep dive to understand why. Why does this specific comment resonate so deeply right now? And what does it reveal about this huge ongoing negotiation we're all having around gender and sexuality?
Yes, because when you look at the immediate reaction, I mean, the flood of condemnation, the really strong criticism calling the remark insensitive, harmful, it tells you something fundamental is being talked past. What this controversy really highlights is a major clash of cultural attitudes.
And that clash, it seems, stems from a lack of clarity on a really essential distinction.
The difference between gender identity and sexual orientation.
That's the one. What's so fascinating here is how quickly the boundaries of what's considered acceptable public discourse have shifted.
It's like the internet has perfect recall, but society's understanding is playing catch-up.
Exactly. The widespread condemnation comes directly from how that comment, which maybe reflects an older, more binary worldview, just dismisses the crucial nuances that LGBTQ+ advocates have worked so hard to clarify over the last decade.
Okay, so let's nail down the specifics of the comment itself, because that's the ignition point for this whole conversation.
But
it's an old clip, but its sudden virality has put it under a brand new microscope.
Right, and the core issue, according to the critics flooding social media, is this idea that attraction to a transgender woman must somehow make a man gay.
That's the crux of it.
It is. The central argument from advocates is that sexual orientation is, well, it's a complex spectrum. It's not a simple on-off switch.
So attraction to a transgender woman just doesn't determine a man's sexual orientation.
It doesn't. Your preferences for partners don't always align with these very traditional, very binary labels. And the rapper's statement is seen as erasing that nuance entirely.
And crucially, perpetuating stigma against a group that's already really vulnerable.
We also have to talk about the language itself, the word choice.
The word gay.
Yes. One key thing our sources noted is the concern that gay is often used in this context, not as, a neutral descriptor of orientation.
But as an insult.
Exactly, as an explicit insult, a way to diminish or degrade the man in that hypothetical scenario.
It's meant to police masculinity in a way.
I think that's a great way to put it. If we look at the cultural history, especially in certain public spheres like older hip-hop culture, the use of gay or similar terms has often functioned as a tool for enforcing a very specific traditional idea of masculinity.
So when a celebrity with that kind of persona makes a statement like this, it reinforces that binary and sort of applies shame to anyone who crosses it. Okay, this feels like the moment for the big aha. That simplifies the entire debate for you, the listener. We need to clearly define the two concepts that are getting tangled up here.
Yes. Gender identity versus sexual orientation.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. The sources really stress this separation, and getting this clarity is your key takeaway. So gender identity is one's internal, deeply felt sense of being male, female, or another gender. It's about who you are.
It's intrinsic. A transgender woman is a woman.
Correct. Then you have sexual orientation, which is completely separate. That involves your pattern of emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction toward other people. It's about who you're attracted to.
Okay, so let me try to apply that clarity directly to this controversy just to make sure we're anchored.
Go for it.
If a man identifies as a straight man and his attraction is directed toward women, then dating a transgender woman, who is, by that definition, a woman, doesn't change his sexual orientation.
That doesn't change it at all.
So the confusion isn't really about attraction. It's about mislabeling the identity of the person he's attracted to.
That is precisely the mistake. You've got it. The mistake is conflating the partner's identity with the man's orientation. The man is still attracted to women, which aligns with his stated straight orientation.
And experts are clear that when you conflate these two things, as the comment arguably does, it just completely muddies the water.
It creates a justification for prejudice where, logically, none exists.
That clarity is so important. But for advocates, this isn't just an academic debate about vocabulary. It's about what happens in the real world when language fails.
Right.
Which brings us to our next section. The so what? The tangible impact this type of language can have on the transgender community.
Yes, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the advocate's urgent message moves way beyond semantics. It focuses on the very real discrimination that the transgender community faces every single day.
And the data our sources point to is pretty stark.
Yeah.
It makes the argument for language sensitivity much more urgent. Transgender individuals experience alarmingly high rates of harassment and violence.
And we're not just talking about verbal harassment. We're talking about social exclusion, workplace discrimination.
And real barriers in really crucial settings, like trying to find housing or get health care.
Now, think about the implications of that. When a public figure, especially someone with a huge cultural platform, makes a joke or a statement that implies a transgender woman isn't really a woman.
Or that being attracted to her is somehow shameful or outside the norm.
It normalizes that prejudice. That language provides cover for the very discrimination you see in the data. Whether it's someone being denied an apartment, a doctor refusing care, or just straight-up public harassment.
So advocates insist that language matters because these high rates of discrimination directly shape people's lives. Their position is really clear on this.
And what is that position?
That respect for a person's self-identified gender is just the baseline. It's the bare minimum expectation for public discourse. Without that basic respect, it's functionally impossible to move the needle on those statistics.
And this specific controversy, it really reveals these broader, deep-seated cultural divides. We're in this unique moment in history where societal understanding, visibility, and even legal recognition of LGBTQ+ issues have accelerated so much in the last 10 years.
And whenever societal norms shift that quickly, you are going to get intense pushback.
Of course.
You see this divide between people who are operating under this updated, more nuanced framework of gender and orientation, and those who are still reflecting older, more binary, more traditional views.
And that cultural tension is exactly why a years-old comment can suddenly become a massive story today. The controversy is a microcosm of that exact negotiation.
On one side, you have the urgency of harm reduction and using respectful language.
And on the other, you have people who approach the comments through a completely different lens, often one of performance and free expression.
Which leads us directly to the pushback and to the people who defended the rapper's remarks. Because while the condemnation was loud, not everyone agreed with it.
Right, and it's essential for a balanced deep dive to look at that perspective, too. Some social media users did come to his defense, and they tended to approach the comment primarily through that lens of performance and persona.
Their main argument centered on his public image. They argued that these blunt, provocative, sometimes controversial remarks are just characteristic of his act.
Part of the brand.
Exactly, part of the brand. Therefore, his statements shouldn't be seen as, genuine literal malice, but as a key element of his established persona. They're basically saying that listeners are confusing the artist with the art.
And this touches on a much larger dynamic in celebrity culture, doesn't it? Especially within genres that are built on provocation. Fans often grant a really wide berth for controversial language, viewing it as keeping it real or being authentically blunt.
So these defenders are suggesting that critics just don't understand the genre and that they're conflating hyperbole or maybe dark humor with an actual condemnation of a group of people.
There's also a broader critique from this group about public outrage itself.
Right, about cancel culture.
In a sense, yeah. These voices suggested that critics are just too quick to dismiss provocative statements entirely. They argued that we need open debate, even uncomfortable discussion, without these immediate cancellations, even if the statements are seen as offensive by some. They're questioning the speed and the severity of the public reaction.
This tension, it's always between artistic freedom and social responsibility. It's at the heart of all of these controversies.
It is. While the defenders are arguing for space for provocative expression and seeing the comments as, non-literal performance,
the critics are pointing to quantifiable, real-world harm that's caused by normalizing prejudice, regardless of what the speaker originally intended.
Precisely. And according to our sources, while those defenses were out there, the criticism significantly outweighed them.
And that imbalance, that asymmetry, it underscores that in our current climate, the push for respectful language and nuance and the focus on the impact of remarks have the louder and more powerful public voice.
Yeah, the complexity here is just how differently audiences interpreted this one thing. For some, the comment was a harmless joke from an entertainer.
And for others, it was a dangerous, high-profile example of disrespect that fuels systemic harm.
And here's where it connects to the broader patterns we track in these deep dives, these high-profile controversies. and there have been others involving different entertainers and similar backlash, they mirror these larger societal debates.
Debates about where you draw the line between free speech, performance art, and guaranteed respect in the public arena.
Which leads us directly into our final section, the evolving boundaries of public commentary.
The most significant element here just feels like the practical reality of the digital age. How quickly a past comment can resurface, sometimes years later, stripped of its original context.
And immediately be held up against the boundaries of acceptable discourse today.
It's almost like the internet has perfect recall, but society only has short-term memory when it comes to context.
That's a great way to think about it. What was maybe considered just a provocative joke years ago is now held up to the far stricter standard of today's rapidly evolving social norms.
And this single clip has triggered a full-on reevaluation of the language we use around gender and sexuality.
So the entire discussion becomes this dialogue focused on balancing three key elements: the speaker's intent, the artistic context, humor or persona, and these rapidly evolving social standards that dictate what's acceptable public language.
Ultimately, what we've synthesized in this deep dive is really just a snapshot of an ongoing difficult negotiation. It highlights this acute tension over what constitutes harmful speech and how we as a society talk about fundamental human experiences like gender identity and sexual orientation in the public square.
Absolutely. So let's just synthesize our journey here for a moment. A single resurfaced celebrity comment became this surprising catalyst for a necessary deep dive into critical sociological distinctions.
The clarity between gender identity and sexual orientation.
And a stark reminder of the real-world impact that public language has, particularly on marginalized communities.
And for you, gaining this clarity, understanding the definitional difference, and being able to hold multiple perspectives, from the advocates stressing health and safety to the defenders arguing for performance context, that's truly key to navigating the complex information landscape you face every day.
Well said. But we want to leave you with one final thought, something to mull over that builds on this idea of cultural divides and evolving standards.
Okay.
Our sources noted that today we have unprecedented levels of LGBTQ plus visibility and legal recognition more than ever before.
So consider this. Since these shifts in societal understanding have sparked such intense debates and cultural tension, as we've just seen with this resurfaced comment, what specific role does that increased visibility and legal recognition play in simultaneously accelerating acceptance and triggering resistance in these complex cultural negotiations? Think about that tension as you move forward.